Chuck Fresh with Computer Care Clinic, and today we're going to give you an introduction to Microsoft Excel. One of our most requested classes. I know everything's requested, but this is probably the biggest one out of the whole entire Office suite. So let's talk about Excel. What does Excel do? Well, it's an electronic spreadsheet program. So what can you do with it? You can store and manipulate numerical and other data. It's kind of like a limited database, only it does calculations, and a lot of people find all kinds of interesting things to do with it. We used to use it in corporate America to track sales campaigns, and we could do all kinds of neat charts with it, but typically people use it for, they can actually make their own checkbook register. You can do summing figures, add things up. Some people use it for their communities, for nonprofit events, to keep track of loan payments and what kind of interest you're paying, all kinds of information that you can analyze and store right here in a spreadsheet format in a way that used to be done by hand. Remember those big written ledgers, and you always have pencils in there, and they'd be books and books and books of them, and a lot of them are still around. A lot of people still use them, surprisingly, but now you can do it electronically, you can store them, you can share them, and you can archive them very, very easily. So how do you get Excel? Well, Excel is part of the Microsoft Office suite. A lot of people are under the misconception that Excel comes with some computers. If it's not pre-purchased with that computer as part of some kind of package, then it does not get built into Microsoft Windows or Apple's OS X operating systems. You always have to add it on there, and if you want to use it, you have to buy it. Now, it may come as a trial version on a lot of computers, which it does, and it gives you some limited functionality for, I think, 30 or 90 days. Correct me if I'm wrong. But then after that, you have to purchase it if you want to continue to use it and save files and share files in it. So it does not come with any computer unless you purchased it up front. Again, back in the day, it used to. There used to be a bunch of computers that would give you Office, and but that's kind of gone away at least a decade ago. Now, it's important to mention, there are other spreadsheet programs that you can use that are very, very similar. So what you learn in this training video, you probably can use in one of the other competing spreadsheet programs, including OpenOffice and Kingsoft Office, with just a few minor changes, but the look and feel and the functionality should be almost identical. So if you buy it as a whole package, they throw in Microsoft Word usually and PowerPoint, and depending on which version you get, you may get Outlook and Access, which is the database functionality. And there's all kinds of new stuff being added to Office all the time. Or you can just buy Excel by itself, and it's roughly about $120. So where do you start? Well, by the end of this lesson, we're hoping you'll be able to identify the Excel window, is where you put all your stuff in Excel. You'll know the difference between a workbook and a worksheet and the other terminology, what a cell is and what it's capable of doing, and we're going to hopefully get you started in Excel, assuming that you have some sort of spreadsheet program, and we can create your first working spreadsheet. If you don't have Excel, you can download a trial version at www.office.com. You can download that for free from Microsoft. I think you do have to sign up for a Microsoft account, but that's no big deal. It makes it easy for it later in the event that you want to purchase it. And you can actually purchase Office online through that website that is owned by Microsoft. Be careful where you download things and where you buy Office. There's a lot of rogue copies out there. There's a lot of fake copies, and there's a lot of retailers who sell stolen versions of Office, and you just want to be legitimate and straight up and make sure you don't get any malware or have any problems later on down the line. So again, you can buy it online. You can download it on most high-speed internet connections. You can get everything done in less than an hour. So it's pretty darn quick. So now let's take a look. This is the Excel window. Once you're in Excel, we'll go through all this stuff now, and then we'll actually open Excel and show you this in practice. We'll show you how all this stuff works and interacts together. Now, this is the window. It's important to know what the parts are to this window. And basically, this is Office 2016, which is fairly similar to the older versions. Forgot to mention that some of the older versions of Office still are completely functional. Most of the theory and functionality of the old versions of Office has carried over into the new one. So if you know how to use the new one, you'll be able to use the old one and vice versa. So if you have Office 1997, which we actually got working on somebody's Windows 10 computer, you can still use the same basic functionality. Nothing has really changed that dramatically, just the look and the feel of it. And they've added a whole bunch of new functionality, mostly formatting, but some other stuff here to make it look a little prettier. So on the top of your page, you will see your toolbars. And what are they? There's your menu bar, and the menu bar opens its own corresponding toolbar where you can do things like formatting and shading and coloring and autofilling and a lot of advanced things that we'll go into in a later video. But what's important is just to know that that is your toolbar. It's located on the top of your page, and it's got a whole bunch of fun things you can do with it. Most of them are self-explanatory. Some of them are a little more difficult, and again, we'll go into that stuff later. Right underneath your toolbars is your formula bar. And that's where your formulas, you can do editing there. If you have complex formulas that won't fit onto a cell on your screen, and you'll see this later, you can just edit things right here in your formula bar. It makes things a little bit easier to see and work with. Then you have your column headings. Just like in a building, the column is your vertical arrangements, all the up and down columns. And to the left, of course, are your row headings. And you see they are starting with letters and numbers, and they're sequential. You can't change those. They are what they are, but they're very, very easy to work with. Fortunately, it is consistent across all spreadsheet programs. And then finally, there are the cells. And these little sort of marked cells here are where you do all your functions and enter all your numbers and your data. So that's the Excel window. Not too difficult, right? Stay with me here. Go into some more terminology. The workbook is a collection of one or more worksheets. So if we go back, this is one worksheet. And your entire Excel project or that file that you saved is known as a workbook. So you think of a worksheet like a sheet of paper inside of a book. And you can have umpteen many sheets inside that workbook, and they can all function together. They can interact with each other, meaning you could have numbers or data or text or something on one page, on one worksheet, and you can interact with another worksheet all within that same workbook. As a matter of fact, you can work across workbooks too, but that's a little more complicated. We'll talk about that later. That's pretty cool. The menu bar, again, is what's on top. It's where you have your file, home, insert page layout. And you'll see each time you click on one of those items in the menu bar, a toolbar, a corresponding toolbar will open below it with a whole bunch of little icons or shortcuts underneath. And these are all the fun things you can do. Once you get a little bit more advanced, and you could use some of them now. We'll actually use some of them today. So that's your workbook and your worksheet, and then your menu bar, and then the corresponding toolbar that goes with each of the menu items. Each of the menu items has its own toolbar, and you can customize these too, which is neat, and we'll get into that a little later too when we get into our advanced course. So the cell, probably the most important part, is the cell. And this is a cell is basically one of these boxes here. It's the intersection of a certain or specific column and row, like A1 or C5. Think of Battleship if you used to play that game. And you'll be able to more easily think of a cell and its location. The selected cell here is not B3. I apologize for that. We have a whole bunch of cells here. We used some different things here, some weird examples. But basically the cell that you click on, you can get to a cell by just clicking on it, or you can use the arrow keys on your keyboard and go up and down and actually select any one of these cells on the page. You can start in any cell. You don't have to start in A1. You can start in D55 if you wanted to. It's no big deal. It really doesn't care where you start. But for your own organization, it's better, obviously, to start in a localized area of cells and keep everything together so you know where everything is. It's hard to keep track of everything if you're all over the spreadsheet. But with that said, some people do that. So it depends really what your goals are. You can format cells as text, as decimals, percentage, currencies, and you can make them bold and underline and change the font and the color and all kinds of fun stuff too. You can really make this thing pop and stand out and look really cool. Cells are outlined while selected, and you can select them again by clicking on them with the mouse cursor. Click on any one of the cells. Or you can, again, arrow down using the arrow buttons on your keyboard. So, as you can see that cell A4 contains the text Bob. And cell B6, if you go down to B6 next to Lisa, you can tell that her age under that particular heading that she's 26 years old. Not that that's important, but just to give you a reference of where your cells are and what you can put in them. And Excel's pretty smart. It knows what you're putting in there. It will try to guess if it's text, formulas, or numbers. And most of the time it's right. So, and again, your formula bar is up top here and gives you a little bit more of a layout here and a little bit easier to edit your formulas, especially once you get into some of the complicated functions. So your column headings, you're going to have 1 to 16,384 columns. So they start with A, and once you run out of alphabet, it goes to AA, and then AAA, and so on. But it is it's sequential, just so you know that. And also your row headings, they've gotten a little funky with row headings. They used to stop at, I think, 16,000 and some change, but now you can go up to about 1 million rows. Not that you'd need them. And again, they're sequential. So you can go from 1 all the way down to 1,048,576. Not that you'd ever use that, but that's how far you can go if you ever needed to do that. So it gives you a lot of room to grow. In worksheet titles, remember we talked about worksheets as opposed to workbooks. The whole file, this whole particular Excel file that you'll save is called a workbook. And then as we're looking at this particular one, this is sheet 1. You can name these things whatever you want. This is worksheet number 1. And again, formulas and data can be spanned across worksheets and even workbooks too. So navigating the worksheet. Now to move to and activate any cell, as we've said before, you can either click on the cell or just use your arrow buttons. And when the cell is activated, you can enter data numbers or formulas into the cells. You can also move around your worksheet by using the scroll bars, the left and right scroll bars. You can scroll all the way down to the bottom, or you can use your page up and down keys too. You can also move left and right that way. Also, you can scroll one page at a time. And to move from worksheets to another worksheets, then we won't do this today, but you can click on the sheets on the bottom. Each individual worksheet will have its own title tab, and you just click on each one of those tabs to move back and forth between sheets. So to create your first workbook, you can save this video and just pause it at this point, and you can go through this as many times as you need to. It may take a couple of times before you're totally comfortable creating your initial worksheets and workbooks, and you'll figure this out fairly easily. And we'll actually run through one at the end of the video, so stick around. So all you have to do is open the Excel program. Hopefully you've downloaded it by now, or Open Office or Kingsoft Office. There's several other variations too, some of the free ones, but it all works the same way. You click on File, and then you click on New, and then you will select either one of these many templates that they already gave you where you can backfill your information. You see the calendars here, and then there's other things here for small business, calculators, finance, accounting. They've given you a myriad of defined solutions where you can just enter your own numbers and customize it the way that you want, and do some really neat things here in terms of figuring out payments and amortization and all kinds of budget building and customer management tools, all kinds of really cool stuff they've already done for you. And most of these templates are free, so you can click on any one of these. But for now, we'll start on the blank one just to give you the basics. Just a reminder, if you've watched our backup video, you realize how important it is to constantly save your work and then back that work up. So the File menu on your toolbar will open up. This is actually, if you open File in your Excel worksheet, it's the only one that will open vertically. Everything else has a horizontal toolbar. But the File menu will give you the left-hand menu here, and this is all the things you can do with it. You can print, save. And if you want to give it a new name, you tell it where. You see your folder hierarchy up top. Most people will save, and I believe the default location is in Documents. And so if you can't find a file, look in Documents first, unless you told it to save it somewhere else. A lot of people will just save things on their desktop. And also you can save things to Dropbox and OneDrive, which does come with Microsoft Office. And they give you a bunch of free storage on the cloud if you like to do that. Be careful, because a lot of people will get the OneDrive installed and not realize they're actually saving it to the cloud and not their computer. So just kind of eyeball it. Make sure that you're on this PC, which will show up in Windows 8 and 10. And if it says OneDrive, then you're saving it to the cloud. So you just give it a name. You type the name in file name. It'll save it as an XLSX at the end if you're using Microsoft Office 2007 or later. Otherwise, it'll just be the 3-digit extension XLS, and you can save it as either. If you're sharing this workbook with somebody who's using a really old version of Microsoft Office, that's 2003 or prior, you'll probably want to save it as an XLS file, so that they can open it easily. They may have the converter installed, which is free from Microsoft, but there's always the outlier who doesn't. So you don't lose a lot of functionality, just some of the newer functions may be dropped if you don't have the XLS X file. And you can drop that box down there where it says save as type, and you can give some authors and some tags and all kinds of fun stuff there. So talking about cells, if you want to enter data in any cell, you just open up that cell by clicking on it or arrowing into it and just start typing. In this particular example, we chose cell D5 and we just started typing. Holy moly. You can also select a cell and type into the formula bar right ahead up on top here, and Excel will try to guess what type of data it is, whether it's a number, whether it's an equation, or whether it's text. In this case, it's just simple text. And to commit that data to that particular cell, all you've got to do is hit the enter button on the keyboard, or just click out of it, and it'll keep that information in that cell, and that's called committed. No worries, you can always delete it or edit it later, as we're talking about right here. To edit data in a cell, you can just mouse point to this particular cell and just double click on the cell to edit it, and you'll see it will open up. You'll be able to enter it and change things around. So in this particular example, I double clicked on cell D5 and I just changed the text. I added the O and a space, so now it's holy oh moly. So very, very easy. You can also edit text in the formula bar. Formula bar is not just for formulas, it's for anything in that particular cell. A lot of people don't realize that. But you can change it up there too, but no one ever does. It's just not the cool way to do things. Now, if you change your mind and you say, hey, oh, you know what, that cell was fine, it's holy moly, you can just hit the escape button without committing anything. And there's always the undo functionality, which is that little curved arrow up top. And we'll talk about that in a more advanced training course. So once you hit enter on that keyboard, it commits your changes, and bang, you've fixed whatever you needed to fix in that particular cell. Now, to delete data in a cell, you can just click on the cell and press the delete key on your keyboard, and the entry disappears. It all just clears it all out. Or you can also double click on the cell and get into the editing motion and just backspace through all your data. That'll go away too. Or one other way, as there's always a million ways to do anything in Windows, which is actually really convenient, you can right click or right mouse click on that cell and then left click on the menu selection saying clear contents. Just hit enter and boom, it's gone. So that's all you need to do to delete data. So it's very, very flexible. We've looked at how to enter, edit, and delete data in an Excel worksheet cell. So let's move it along here. Now, the great thing about Excel, what's different with Excel than compared to a word processing program or something else, is you can do calculations in here. And that's the power of a spreadsheet. You can manage numbers and you can change them and you can enter things and you can constantly grow and move and change and have this thing adapt to your needs. And that's the power of a spreadsheet. And what's nice about this, instead of doing it manually like you did in the old days, is Excel does all those calculations for you once you tell it what to do. So everything starts again with a cell. So you click on the cell, any cell in here. Again, you don't have to start at A1. We started at B4 here. You just click on the cell that you want to activate, and then you type the equal sign. And that says, hey, Excel, I'm going to create a formula. I want you to do some sort of mathematical operation for me. So that tells Excel, let's get ready. We're going to start doing some number crunching here. So in the first example here, I'm just going to do a real simple example. I did equals, and then I did 10. I just typed in 10, and then plus for the addition sign to tell Excel I want to add these together. And again, you can multiply, divide, subtract, all that fun stuff in advanced functionality later. But right now for this example, we're just going to do 10 plus 10. So I did equals, 1, 0, and then the addition sign, which is shift equal right next to the backspace on most keyboards. And then I typed in a 10. And then just press enter on your keyboard, and magically it will come up with the answer. Excel will do that calculation and return 20, hopefully. If it doesn't, then we've all got some problems. So for a formula, you can do it the same way and just add all these cells together. As if I look at the F column, it's got a bunch of colors on it here. I've got all these random numbers I just typed in here. So you can do it the same way we just did. You can do it the long way and do equals F3 plus equals F4 plus, and add this whole column of numbers together by clicking in the cell where you want the result to end up. And then it will do that calculation for you. The other thing you can do is actually click and drag the whole list that you want to add up, and then Excel will add all that stuff up together. But you can also click on each one of these cells too, instead of manually typing the F3, F4, F5, and we'll show you this in our example at the end of this instruction. So again, you can click on each one of the cells, or you can type it in by hand, and you can do it right there in the cell or above, as you see up there in the formula bar. Either way, you'll end up with the same result. So just to touch on, I used to not talk about this in our beginning Excel classes, but everybody seems to know about Autosum, and everybody's telling, well, isn't there an easier way to add this list of numbers? Well, absolutely. There is an Autosum function circled in red up on the right-hand corner here, and it appears on the Home menu item on the toolbar under Home on the Excel spreadsheet. And here's some instructions how to do it. Just left click, hold the left clicker, and drag your mouse cursor over the column of numbers or row of numbers that you want to add together. Just release it, and then click on the Autosum sign, which is that little Greek symbol there. And then in the next available cell below, it will give you the result in the next available cell. So that's Autosumming. And if you're a little more advanced, then you already know about this. And why are you here in the first place? No, I'm just kidding. Let's keep moving along here. And here's an Excel combination formula like we talked about before. You can do addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And a little bit more advanced, but for some reason you need to add all these numbers together if you're working on homework or some other thing. Again, you would just type the equal sign in, and then type the cell, and then give it the arithmetic function, the add, subtract. We'll show you down here on the bottom here which each one is for. The plus is obviously for addition. The dash is to subtract. Multiplication uses the shift 8 or the asterisk, and division is a /. There is no symbol for multiplication and division on a typical keyboard. So Excel kind of backfilled this a long time ago, and everybody just kind of went with it, and it seems to be working fine. There's no reason to change it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So you can see here in cell A10, I've got this ridiculously complicated formula just to show you some examples of what we can do with arithmetic functions and how we can combine all these things together. I'm not sure if arithmetic is a word, but work with me on this too. I'm no accountant, okay? No bean counter here, but I'm just trying to give you the functionality of this fun stuff. So let's move ahead to the next slide. Is arithmetic a word? We'll look into that later. All right, so now we can make things look pretty in Excel. And without getting too complicated, sometimes you have a bunch of text in a cell and it doesn't fit because the cells in their plain state are pretty thin. So to let you know, you can click your mouse pointer, get to the right side of that cell, and then it'll turn into a little doodad with a thin black line and a couple of arrows, and then you can click, hold, and drag it out and make it a little bit wider so that your text fits in there neatly. You can make it as wide as you want. You can make it 5 feet wide if you wanted to, although that'd be really weird when you try to print something out. And it tells you how many pixels it is and the width of it and all that fun stuff, and make it as pretty as you want so you can read all the text in that particular cell. You can also format the data in the cell. I mean, you can make it bold or italicized or underlined. You can also change the font style and the size of your font and all kinds of fun stuff here, including making the cell color different. The background color can be different, so you can point out something if you're trying to show somebody something, and you can also change the color of the font too. And all of this flexibility right here. And a little bit further to the right here, you can't see it on this particular screen, but you can format each of the cells or rows or columns as currency or percentages or even decimals. So all kinds of flexibility to make things look exactly the way you want them to look. So without further ado, let's create our first Excel worksheet. So we're going to jump in the Excel program right now and play around with a little monthly budget spreadsheet from scratch. So you can pause here, take a break, go get a cup of coffee, And get your Excel program open or download it if you need to from office.com or OpenOffice or Kingsoft Office. And then swing back here and we'll pick up where we left off. All right, so the first thing you do when you open Excel is you're going to see a list on the left-hand side of all the workbooks that you have worked on before. Recent documents that it brings up automatically. This is the 2016, the latest version of Microsoft Excel. In the other versions, it may look slightly different, but you'll be able to poke around and find your way around fairly easily. So instead of opening one of these workbooks, I'm going to open the blank workbook, and you'll see all these templates here. We'll take a look at some of these at the end of the course to give you an idea of what Excel can do. So we're going to come up with a blank worksheet. Now this is nothing in it. It's a blank worksheet in a blank workbook. Remember, the sheet is one sheet within the workbook, and the workbook is the entire file. So down on the bottom right-hand side, you see this little zoom thing. You can drag that all the way up and make the cells as big as you want or as small as you want. It kind of zooms in on the window. So we'll zoom in so it's comfortable for everybody to see. And that's actually a little too much. Let's take it down here. And what we're going to do is create our first worksheet using all the tips and tricks we taught you in our little training guide. Remember, hang on to it, bookmark it, and come back to it as many times as you need to. There's a lot to learn here. There is a lot of information here. And if you're just starting out, it will be helpful just to watch it and repeat it and do it over and over again. And you'll be a natural in no time at all. So you can start again in any cell you want. And how do you get into that cell? We either click to it using the mouse cursor, or you can use your arrow keys on the keyboard. So I'm going to start right here in A1, and I'm going to give this worksheet a title. And just for a sample, I'll call it My Budget. And you can see the cells are a certain width. I'll show you how to adjust that width, but for now, just so you know, for income and expenses. If you noticed, I've kept typing. It went through the B, C, and even part of the D cell. And as long as there's nothing in those cells adjoining A1, then the Excel will display the text all the way across those cells. So you don't have to widen that cell just for a title or something if you're not going to put anything in B1, C1, or D1. Now, if I did type something in C, it would obscure it and block the rest of what I typed into A1. So obviously I don't want to do that. I just go back to the cell. And how do we get rid of the contents of a cell? We either click on the cell and then press the delete button on our keyboard, and that will make it go away. Or I can right click on the cell and then left click on clear contents, and that makes it go away, and it shows my header once again. So I want to make my title of my worksheet very, very pretty. So what I'm going to do is click on A1 because that's where I typed it. And of course, you see it up here in the formula bar too. I can make changes up here too if I want to, and you'll see it show up in the cell itself. So I typed right in the formula bar this time, and you see I added 2014. Which is obviously old, but just did it for example. Hey man, I'm living in the past, just go with it. And you can see that it added that 2014 into that line. So I'm gonna come down here. Oh, I wanted to make it pretty, that's right. So as we talked about in formatting late in our lesson, there's the bold, italicize, and underline. So I'm gonna make this bold. Ooh, that's nice, huh? And maybe I'll add a little underline here. Look at that, so I know that it's a title. And I can even change the font to any font that is on my system here. I could make it some ridiculous Britannic bold font and then go back here and it's going to go back to my default worksheet font. I can make it bigger if I want to too. Here's the font size. You can drop it down and tell it the actual font size and it'll give you a little preview of what it is, or you can click up and down. That's what these two little A's are for here, to bring you to increase or decrease your font size. So that's my title on my worksheet. Now we're going to actually enter some data. But first I want to tell my worksheet what this data is. So I'm going to enter some text into these cells. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a list of my expenses, my average monthly expenses. So let's say rent. So I live in a rat hole, so my rent's $400 a month. That's not true, but and then your car. I drive a very expensive car, so maybe my car is $1,500 a month to offset my rent of $400 a month, because that's how I roll, yo. So clothes. Assume that I may have very, very expensive tastes in clothing. So let's say $2,200 a month in clothing, because I like my alligator shoes, yo. And you just keep adding things on here. As you see, I'm typing in text into the left, and Excel knows that that's text. And then I go to the next cell over here to the right, and I'm putting the numbers in, and Excel knows that those are numbers. You don't have to tell it it's numbers. And again, there's no formulas here yet, but we're getting to formulas. So we're going to do a very, very simple spreadsheet to show you how all this works. So let's put one more expense here. What would I have in my monthly expenses? I have rent, car, clothes. What else matters? Let's say rap music. I really, really like rap music. And you can see that C is getting very, very close to the side of that column. So we'll show you how to change that. And let's assume I spend $4,000 a month in rap music. So that is a list of somebody with very bad judgments, monthly expenses. So, well, I can't really judge people on that. There's probably people who spend more on clothes and rap music, but hey, be that shit. How can you even spend $4,000 a month on rap music? All right, so I'm going to go back to the A column here, and you can see my rap music. Say I wanted to add something else in here. Now I can double click on this cell, or I can go up here, and I'm going to make it really long. Let's say yo. Now you can see that yo is actually cut off. You can see it up here in the formula bar, but you can't see it in the cell itself. So I want to click here on the A column, and I'm going to put my mouse. You see how my mouse is changing here, and then it turns into this little doodad, which has a thin line with two arrows. And I'm going to click with my left mouse button and hold it and just drag it over to the right. And you can see my column is becoming wider. I can now fit all those titles in that column space. I can make it smaller by going the opposite way. I can make it really stupid small like that, or make it all the way out. If you want to make multiple columns the same width, you can highlight by left clicking and then it's dragging across the top columns here. And then you just click any one of them and it'll make them all the same width. So that's pretty cool functionality too. A little more advanced than you need right now. But for now, let's just make the A column wide enough so I can put all my stuff in here. So now we're going to create our first formula. And this is going to tell Excel to total everything in that first column, in my B column, everything I'm spending for the month here. So, and there's a couple of ways to do this. The first way we showed you is adding the equal signs. And this says, hey, Excel, I want you to do some mathematical calculations for me. So I'm going to tell it, I need to add this list of numbers together to find out what my expenses are every month. So I'm going to, there's two ways to do this. I can either type in the cells that I want to add or subtract or multiply or divide together. This time, obviously, we're going to add things. So I can say, hey, Excel, I want you to add cell B3. And then it's going to automatically highlight that for me in the later versions. In the earlier versions, it doesn't do that, but in 2007, I think, and forward, it does. So the version you have probably will. So it's a nice little indicator, so you can make sure you have highlighted or indicated the right cells. And then I'm going to say, I want you to add something else, Excel. And I'm going to tell I want you to add my car payment. Now, if I look at this, I look at column B, and then 4 has $1,500 a month, which is my car payment. So I'll say B4. And then I'm going to add some more. And you keep doing this until you have all the numbers that you need added. B5, and I'm going to add, with the plus sign, B6. And then when I'm done my formula, all I have to do on my keyboard is either hit the enter button or just down, or, well, no, you can't hit down. I'm sorry about that. I misspoke there. You have to hit the enter button on your keyboard, and it creates that calculation for me, which is real nice. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make this bold so that I know that it's a total, so it's a little easier for me to see. And I can tell that my monthly expenses are $8,100 a month for this weird things that I'm buying here every month. So if I want to, right now I'm just showing these as numbers. There's no commas, no decimal points, but you can display these and format them virtually any way you want. On the top of your spreadsheet, if you look at your home button on your toolbar, it will open. You see how I click on these? It opens individual toolbars for each of these menu items. But we're going to go back to home because that's where the formatting is. And then I can either highlight one cell by clicking on it or selecting the cell. And I can say, hey, Excel, I want that to be currency. So you can do currency, percentage, commas, dates, all kinds of weird things here. But for now, for simplicity, we're going to make that currency. And it's going to say now it's $400, gives me a couple decimal points, also adds the dollar sign here. If I want to do multiple cells, I simply click. Well, there's a couple of ways to do this. I can left click and hold B3 and then drag it down. And then let my left mouse button go. And it's selected these 5 cells. And then I can click currency. I could change that percentage. That would make that really weird. I could change it to a decimal point if you prefer to see things that way. So many different solutions and options to change and make these Excel figures and spreadsheets look exactly like you want them to look. I can also click on the column header, and you see once I click on the A, B, C, it selects the entire column. That's from 1 all the way down to 1,000,000. And everything that I click on in that column will be formatted when I hit one of these formatting buttons. Now for this column, I want everything that's ever going to be in that B column to be currency. So I clicked on the currency symbol and it made it currency. So there we are. This is your first Excel formula. I've got a number in this one, 400, 1500 in this one. That's all I did was enter numbers in here. And then in cell B7, I told Excel to add these numbers together. Now, another way to sum things together, which is one of the most common functions you'll probably use in Excel, is to use the summation, which is also here on your spreadsheet. And it will automatically sum a list of numbers, and it will provide the answer in the next available cell. So, for instance, I'm going to left click on cell B3, and then I'm going to hold that left click down and drag my cursor down over these 4 numbers. And then I go up to the summation function, just click it once, and boom, in the next cell, it automatically summed all those numbers together. You can also do that manually. You can tell Excel equals, hey, I've got a formula coming up, and then you type the word SUM. And then everything in Excel is in parentheses once you do a function. That's your first function. So next I'm going to say, hey, Excel, I want you to sum all these items from this cell to this cell for me and tell me what the total is. So in this case, and again, we might be a little too complicated, but I'll show it to you anyway. So I'm going to say from cell B3, and then I'm going to hit ... and that tells Excel, all right, you're going to give me a range now. So you want me to sum everything from B3 to what? Well, cell B6, my rap music, is my last expense. And then I want you to give me a total of everything between B3 and B6. So I type B6 in there. And then I can either put the end parenthesis in there or just hit enter. It'll put it in there for me. And then I just hit enter, and there it is. It summed those things up for me again. So that's the sum function. So that's your first Excel function. Congratulations. You're flying around like a pro now. Go ahead and get your CPA. You've already graduated. Tell them I sent you. So that is your first Excel spreadsheet. So what did we do? We did some cool little formatting. We did a couple of formulas, and we did our first function. And there's literally hundreds, maybe even thousands of functions on this thing. I haven't even dealt with them all. You can click on the function here. I think it gives you a list of all kinds of things here. Well, we'll go into that in a later video, in a more advanced video. I don't want to get you all confused on this one. So when we're done, we've got this here. We've got a very simple worksheet. And just to give you this idea too, you can double click. See where it says sheet 1 on the bottom? I can double click on this and call it anything I want. So if I have a workbook that has more than one worksheet, which I can add another worksheet by just clicking on this plus, I can maybe do something called income. And then I can attach formulas and equations across worksheets within a workbook. And you can do, I forget what the number is, it's in our training thing, but just a crazy amount of worksheets within one workbook. And you can pretty much put your entire life finances in one workbook and do some crazy calculations and charts with that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save. If it's the first time you're saving a file, it's going to be save, but usually you want to save as, and you tell it where you want to save it. I'm going to save it under, let's click on this PC, and then I'm going to go, just save it to my documents, and I'm going to call this you can call this whatever you want, my first workbook. And try to remember where you save things so you can easily get back into them. If not, you can always get back into it by, when you click on open, it'll give you the most recent workbooks that you have worked on. And then you can click on that and just open it. And always save your changes too and back things up, obviously. We have a bunch of videos on backing up too. So that is your introduction to Excel. We're going to run through a couple of different templates that Microsoft provides and other third-party vendors provide that make things very, very simple for you to just customize and build on what they've already done. And they've got some really nice looking worksheets. So take a look at these, and please like and subscribe to our channel if you like what you're seeing. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and we'll try to have somebody get back to you. Thanks again for watching. My name is Chuck Fresh with Computer Care Clinic, and have a great day.
Cruise ship and walk down the steep bluff. 43 guys trying to sell me some stuff. Some selling ganja, some selling sweet love. What got my attention was Jamaican rum. They said, hey white man, help you forget your trouble. If you buy one right now, your order will double. How did I miss getting back to that cruise ship? All I remember was Jamaican rum. Stuck in Jamaica, only took me a quick hit. All I remember was Jamaican rum. Back at the airport, thought I'd meet them in Nassau. 43 guys trying to sell me some stuff. Some selling trinkets, some selling steel drums. What got my attention was Jamaican rum. They said, hey white man, help you forget your trouble. If you buy one right now, your order will double. How did I miss getting up on that airplane when all I remember was Jamaican rum? Stuck in Jamaica, got one hell of a headache. All I remember was Jamaican rum. Hey man, what the heck is in this stuff?
It's a special concoction of island goodness, man.
But it knocks me on my ass.
It's like magic juju for the white man.
Yeah, well that magic juju got me in a lot of poo-poo. And all I know now is I'm stuck in Jamaica. All I remember was Jamaican rum. It ain't that bad, but don't drink the water. All I remember was Jamaican rum. Hey white man, help you forget your trouble. If you buy one right now, your order will double. Seriously, my brother, I got to go home.
Home? What you want to do that for, man? My rum take the troubles away.
Yeah, but I got a job and a family, man.
We be your family, man. You would look good in dreads, man.
Dreads? If I stay here any longer, I might be dead.
No, I got you, man. Here, how about another bottle, man?
Oh, hell no. I spent the last 3 days on my ass.
Yeah, but you got no troubles, man. Buy one, get one free, man. Come on.
Well, maybe just one more.
That's what I am talking about, man.
Oh, no. Here we go again.